We've got a show today about the early days of Celebrity Center in Los Angeles with Skip Press. He's our guest today. He's a writer and podcaster, and he was around in the early 1970s when Janis's mother, Yvonne Gillham Jentzsch, started Celebrity Center. And we've got a lot of humorous stories and things that were going on during that time period that we think you're going to enjoy. So anyway, stick around, and here comes Skip Press. Welcome, everybody, to our channel, Scientology Peeling the Onion. My name is Mark Fisher. I'm here with my co-host, Janis Gillham Grady. Aloha, Janis. How are you doing today?
G'day, Mark. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fine, You know, just keep on. We're into the new year now, and we've got some exciting shows and some exciting guests here that we've got lined up. I think people are going to enjoy it.
Yeah, I think so, too. Yeah. Yeah, now I've got an exciting year coming up. I've got 2 grandbabies that are going to be born in March, 2 weeks apart. So one boy and one girl. So I'm looking forward to that. So
that's great.
All right, so let's get into this. So today's guest is someone that, well, he's in the Hollywood scene. He's a author and a screenwriter, mostly author, but he joined Celebrity Center back in the early 70s. So he worked with my mother and was familiar with a lot of different celebrities during her day. And he's been around for a while. He's got his own podcast, and he'll go into that. But he's very knowledgeable on a lot of things that happened within Scientology back in the day. So this will be a fun one, reminiscing about Celebrity Center days and my mother and him and so forth. So let's welcome Skip Press.
Hi, Skip.
Hey,
how you doing?
I'm good. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, this should be fun. Because, you know, I was thinking the other day, when did I originally meet you? And I remember back at 8th Street Celebrity Center running into you, and we sat down and we chatted. And then I just, you know, whenever I'd see you on my mission to Celebrity Center or something, would always just say hi. But then there's this long period where we didn't talk. And then we ran into each other. I was with Spanky at Hillside Cafe in Burbank, and there you were. That was what, 7 years ago, and now and here we are again.
Like that, yeah, 7 years ago. My God,
yeah.
Tempus fugit.
Yeah,
time flies, right? Yeah,
man.
Yeah. So why don't we go ahead and start at the beginning? How you got involved in Scientology, and you know, and when and how, and we'll go through that.
Yeah, sure. So you know, I dropped out of college, I think in 1971. I was in a master's program because I scored a high score on an SAT test, but nobody was teaching me how to be a writer. And I was kind of being a hippie, but I knew I was going to be a writer when I was 7 years old, and I was determined to do it. And so I dropped out of school. I sort of was a hippie for a while. And then my family moved from Texas to my stepfather's hometown in Alabama, and I was devastated. And my life kind of fell apart a little bit. And so I ended up hitchhiking out to see them in Alabama. And I did that 2 or 3 times because most of the time my stepfather didn't want me around. You know, so finally in 1973, I'd say you know, they let me stay. I stayed there 6 months. I had a job. I worked. I saved some money. I bought a guitar. Bought a portable typewriter, and I was going to go off to Austin, Texas, to pursue being both a musician and a writer. And when I got there in 1973, September, I got into a boarding house for University of Texas students in Austin. And I had my own room, and it was furnished, but I didn't have any bedclothes. So I was hitchhiking out to the mall that existed at the time. And a guy in a Volkswagen Bug pick me up. Hey, where are you going? Oh, I'm going to the mall. I've got to do some shopping. You don't have a car? No, I don't have a car. And he's this little guy, and he's got on a suit and a tie. And this is like a Saturday in the afternoon. Why is he dressed this way, right? So he says, I'm going to a Scientology lecture. You want to come? And I went, oh, yeah, I've heard of that. And he's like, you have? And I said, yeah, I read a book called The New Religions. And there's a chapter on it. And it said that it's the fastest growing religion on the West Coast. He said, oh, really? Are you into things like that? And I said, yeah, I read a lot of spiritual books, Edgar Cayce and stuff like that. And I'm trying to, figure out what life's all about. And he says, well, you want to go? And I said, well, I don't know. I've got on a tank top and cut off jeans. I don't think it's appropriate. Oh, no, it's fine. Believe me. So I'm envisioning myself in that garb walking into a classroom like deal. And it's all people dressed up. Nope, it wasn't that. So I get there, and I'm the only one in the lecture, and it's given by it is. It's given by a guy named Bill Johannesson, who had long hair like down to here and a beard, and a corduroy suit, looked very professorial. So he gives me a lecture on Dianetics. So I listen to this and I'm thinking, yeah, that kind of makes sense. I didn't know at the time that it was derived from abreaction from Freud and Brewer or anything like that. I didn't know much about psychology at all, but I did know a little bit about religion and spirituality. So he tells me that if I have any problems, Dianetics can fix it. And I said, okay, well, that's good. But do you guys believe in reincarnation? And he says, oh, yeah, but we call it past lives. I said, oh, well, okay. Have you come up with anything in Scientology stuff, past lives or something? Oh, yeah. Says, I was Chateaubriand. And I go, who's that?
Well, I was just about to say, who's that?
Yeah, and
I was going to say that's a dinner meal.
Yeah, exactly. And he said, he was like a guy in the French court. He was, he's a poet, and the Chateaubriand steak. If you ever had that? And I said, no. I grew up in these country towns. Chicken fried steak's about all I've ever had. And he goes, well, why are you interested in past lives? And I said, well, I think I was a writer in a past life. And I read a book about the guy, and, as I turned the pages, it's like I knew what was happening before the next chapter. And I looked at some pictures and his family, and it just all seemed real familiar. And he goes, oh, really? Who is that? And I said, Mark Twain. And his jaw went like that. And he said, you really think so? And I said, hell, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going crazy or anything. I'd like to know for sure. I've had these memories or whatever there are, dreams, something. And so he said, well, take the first course, and on a second course, you will do some auditing with this book called Self-Analysis, and you'll find out. Probably, maybe. And I said, okay, great. So I didn't have much money, but I was very vulnerable to pretty registrars. And so one of them named Paula Hoisington, she and this other guy took me to a pawn shop in downtown Austin. And I hawked my guitar and I hawked my typewriter, and I got the $35 for the opening course. And then I think I got the $100 for the Hubbard qualified Scientology course that followed. So on the, on the first course, communications course, I had what they called a major stable win. And I got this vision of like a comet, like coming to Earth and stuff. And I thought, L. Ron Hubbard is here on a mission, and, I was instantly, for some reason, into that whole space stuff. And so that was my major stable win. And I thought, well, he seems like he's figured some things out. So I took the second course. Sure enough, when we were doing the self-analysis auditing, it was something like, remember a time when you had a happy life with your family. And I got this image of New England in the fall at some kind of carnival, and I'm walking around with my family. And it's a guy with sort of dark red hair and a mustache and a wife and a couple of kids, and I thought, holy crap, maybe this Mark Twain thing is correct. I don't know. So then I got to know these staff members at the Church of Scientology in Austin. And there was a guy who running the place at the time named Whitford. And Whit had done the Class 8 course with Yvonne Jentzsch, with your mother, Janis, and at St. Hill, right? And he was kind of a dead ringer for Hubbard when I saw him. And I thought, oh my God, L. Ron Hubbard's here. No, that's Whitford. But then I picked up this newspaper that they had one day. It was called The New Civilization. And it was from the Celebrity Centers, little kind of tabloid size thing. And I looked in the back, and there was an ad, wanted artists and writers, Axioms Productions, please call, right? So I'd written a few things. I hadn't sold anything. And I called them, and I talked to Sue Norton. I think she was married. Her maiden name was different, but she was the handling the Axioms production stuff. And I explained myself, and I said, I did these 2 courses. I liked it, and I joined the Sea Organization, whatever that is. And I joined the Sea Org because all these friends of mine in Austin were doing it. And I didn't know what that entailed. It was like a pledge to me, I'm going to help out for 1 billion years. Yeah. And so I told her all this, and she said, okay, well, come on out. We'll hire you.
Okay.
Yeah. So knucklehead that I am, I got on a bus. I got my stuff out of Hawk. I got on a bus. I show up in the middle of the night at Celebrity Center, get off the Greyhound bus and walk probably 3 miles to where the Celebrity Center was on 8th Street. It was locked up. And so the person who was watching the place, the quartermaster, told me to go to a block away to this thing called FOLO, which was
on Beacon Street.
Beacon Street, you got it. Flag Operations Landing Office.
Liaison office.
Liaison, yeah.
So I get there and sat down. There's a guy there, and I pulled out a cigar and started smoking it. And this guy thought, because I think I was playing the role that I thought I had played before, and he told me it was aberrated. And I said, oh, okay. So I put out my cigar. So morning comes around, and a guy named Peter Alvet, who ran the FOLO, interviews me. And he said, okay, well, I'm sending you to the ship. And I said, what ship? I signed up to be at the Celebrity Center thing. And he said, oh, well, no, if you're in the Sea Organization, you go where we tell you. And I said, wait a minute, this isn't the U.S. Navy. I don't want to go on a ship. But so I talked him out of it. He said, okay, go on over to Celebrity Center. So I went over there, and I got, checked in. I met the people at Axioms Productions who had their own house down by Alvarado, MacArthur Park. Wasn't on Alvarado, some street far away. And and I, settled in, and I found out that they were all Sear members except for the two guys who ran Axioms Productions.
Okay. Now, Axioms did what exactly?
Axioms was started by a guy named Dale Benson, who was a film director. And he ran up a bunch of bills and then went off doing other things and left everybody with the bills, but it was supposed to be an advertising agency. And they did a little bit of that. Ken Gerbino was the pitch man, and Paul Shapiro did all the music and everything, right? And they ended up getting a contract with the church to do a thing called Dianetics 73. And they had billboards around the Los Angeles area. If you want solutions to your life, call this number, Dianetics, Modern Science and Mental Health. And manning the phones and hating every minute of her life at that time was Spanky Taylor. She's like, I hate this, and so that lasted a while, and then I was all ready to write, and so I'm told, no, we need somebody to run a snack bar.
That's where I met you, was the snack bar.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. So I'm running the snack bar, which was pretty cool because they had, bagels and, I could make my own shakes, whatever, so that was good. And, and I think the first day or two I was there, I was by myself, and everybody was in class. And then this beautiful blonde woman pops up and orders a milkshake. And it was Anne Francis, who was very famous at the time for a TV series called Honey West.
Honey West.
Yeah. And before that, she was very famous for a movie called Forbidden Planet. Yeah, if you ever saw that, great science fiction thing. So, and my jaw dropped. It was like, oh my God, it's Anne Francis, And so things like that would happen. People would come in to Celebrity Center. So, I thought, well, I don't mind running a snack bar. But then Axioms had so many bills stacked up and stuff. They needed somebody to be the treasurer of Axioms. So I was sent off to do a 6-month Guardian's Office finance course. And I couldn't tell you anything that was on that course. It was all this stuff that I cared absolutely nothing about. And my basic job was to fend off creditors who would call angrily. And I was, there was a training routine or something where the way to handle them was you just yell at them. And that's what I did for 6 months. And I thought, well, this is kind of a waste of time. But meanwhile, I was fending off these creditors and everything. Finally, a guy named Shelley Bauer is going to come in and save us all, and go to work at Axioms Productions. And he was from Chicago. And Shelley had this superstition. He would not work unless he had pens with green ink. And as soon as he says, okay, you got to get me some pens with green ink. I said, we don't have any. We can't afford any. We got several boxes over there, black, blue, no green. And so he was totally bent out of shape. He starts yelling at me, and I start yelling back at him. And so one thing led to another with this upset stuff. I finished the 6-month course, but Axioms Productions and their bills were just a continuing source of problems. So they finally decided we got to nail somebody for this and so we have somebody to blame. I mean, that's basically what it came down to. So I got a committee of evidence with a guy named John Murakami, who later went off to run Celebrity Center in Las Vegas with his wife, Betty, and Sam Loria, if you remember Sam.
Sure.
Janis.
I remember Sam, yes.
Yeah, and Bob Riggs, who was the examiner at Celebrity Center for a long time, right? And they decide that I am a suppressive. I think that's what they decided.
So she was the scapegoat for the bills?
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. And so, and of course, prior to all this, I went to the Excalibur and did the basic training and stuff like that. And another thing happened was that I got a sec check to make sure it wasn't a government plant by Bill Yowdy. And the question, one of the questions that came up was, have you ever lived under an assumed name? And I said, no, not really. Skip's a nickname, but this is my name. On the thing, that, and it was Mark Twain. And so I told him, and then I'm like, oh boy, I just want to be me.
Right. Now, just so everybody watching understands, where Skip's going like this, he's indicating the needle on the e-meter. And when that happens, it means there's something there to look at. Right. And so that's what the auditor was doing, was having him look at that as to why it kept reading on the e-meter.
Right. And so we get to this ComEv, and then Yvonne liked me. She thought I was kind of a wild and nutty Texan. But
I was going to ask you, how did you meet Yvonne? Do you remember meeting her?
Oh, absolutely. Just a completely unforgettable woman, And
this is Janis's mother.
Yeah, and everybody loved her dearly, and I guess I met her the snack bar. I was behind the snack bar, right?
Well, the snack bar, you go down the stairs from her office, and there's the snack bar. You can't get into the rest of the org without going by the snack bar.
That's right. And so she came. She stopped one day, and of course, I was at the staff muster out in front every morning, that kind of thing. So, but just me and her, she ordered some of the snack bar, and I gave it to her. It was either some drink or something. And then she walks away, and she's about to open the door to go up the stairs. And I looked over at her, and I'm into this past life thing, right? And I go, God, I wonder who she was. She was probably like royalty or something, And she turns and looks at me and smiles. And then she goes up the stairs, and I'm like freaked out, She's telepathic, So by the time I got the committee of evidence and they want to throw me out, Yvonne's like, oh, he's not that bad. He can go back to the ship and do the Excalibur in the San Pedro Harbor and work his way up to conditions, and he's not a suppressive person or something like that. But there was a lady who was over the ethics area of Scientology in the Pacific area at the time, named Clarice Jackson. And
a nightmare.
Yes. And for some reason, Clarice Jackson would have had me electrocuted in a public execution if she could have at the time. And Clarice said, no, he's got to go. So I get put on the street. I have no money. I call my mother back in Alabama. She wires me $50 to Western Union. I buy a bus ticket back to Austin. I get there with $5 in my pocket. I have a friend I can go see who lets me sleep on his couch for a week, and then his girlfriend gets sick of me, and so then I'm on the street again. So I go to the University of Texas bulletin board, and I look on it, and there are two girls who want someone to take over their room and board situation at a house near the campus. So I did that. So I had 2 weeks of free room and board in their place, and then I would have to pay rent. and in the interim, I got a job as a milkman. for Superior Dairies in Austin, Texas. And so that's what I did for the next 10 months or so before I got the call to please come back to Celebrity Center. We could really use you, blah, 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 right? So I go back, and this time I get to be a writer.
Why did they call you? What was the reasoning? I mean, what,
Well, Yvonne's secretary, God, it seemed like her name was Janis, Janice, but whoever it was, her communicator, she was called. It was like, it was basically, Yvonne thinks you're cool, I mean, and not in those words, but you're valuable,
Right.
So I didn't have a lot going on in Austin, and I had a freeloader debt that seemed like impossible to pay off at the time, but I think it was only $1,800 or $1,900. And so I thought, okay, well, so I'll go back. And besides, it was more exciting. I didn't get to meet, famous actresses and people like that in Austin. And so I went back, and when I got there, I was needed to be a letter registrar. So I went over there to this another house on Beacon Street, right? And here's your new letter registrar. And so Skip Press, everybody thought it was a made up name, and some people changed their name. Two other letter registrars changed their name for the public, in writing letters.
Okay.
Vince Johnson became Dakota Smith, I think that's what he called himself. Charlene Sprang became Cat Sprang. and we started writing letters. Now I had my little portable Olivetti typewriter.
Janis, explain to our viewers what a letter registrar was in Scientology.
Oh, a letter registrar's job was to communicate with the different public and encourage them to come back in for their next service.
Off of Central Files, right?
Off of Central Files. So if you bought a book from the organization or from a mission and the name ends up in Central Files of the org, then the letter registrar would go to Central Files and start writing letters to those book buyers to encourage them to come in for the communications course.
Yeah. So,
and once you got in Central Files, you never got out, right?
It's the Hotel California Central Files is what it was. Yeah. Right. And so you'd get a file, you'd look at it, and you'd find something that would resonate with the person you were writing to. Like, oh, you raised donkeys. I once rode a donkey, something like that. Hubbard said, find a reality to connect with them, and then you can build ARC, affinity reality communication, and bring understanding. So I would get the file, open it up, find it, type out a letter while making a carbon copy of it, and put the carbon copy back in the file, and just one after another, And I started selling books, and we'd have little flyers to put in them. I started selling books and even selling courses to people that would write in, and everyone was just dumbfounded because this just wasn't happening before I got there. And I thought, well, that's what I'm supposed to do.
Well, the letters were probably, "Dear Joe, how are you? I am fine. When are you coming in on course?"
That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
I was. Go ahead.
I was going to say, just for our public who don't know, who were never in Scientology, one of the main statistics that L. Ron Hubbard promoted that the organization needed to have was letters out. Like, how many letters out did we send out this week?
Right.
And also bulk mail out, which were like mailings of promotion to Central Files and letters out, because his whole thing was the more you outflow, the more we're going to inflow. And so that was like a main statistic of Scientology organizations were these letters and the bulk mail out. I just wanted to explain that to everybody. So like a lot of, like Janis said, the ones who were just trying to get their stats up, they'd just write like, "Hey, how you doing? Write me back," just some really stupid thing. And they really, they never get a response.
Yeah, and I got some. I ran across some amazing people. You know, one thing that Yvonne would do. I don't know if it was per policy or not, but if somebody got a book that she wanted to recruit, you know, who was a celebrity or something, she would put them in central files. Steve Allen, you know,
Oh,
the
yeah.
original, he ended up in central files, and I wrote him a letter, and I got a reply from him. He said, "Oh yeah, I had that book back in 1950 when it came out." He said everybody was reading it. You
It's
know,
funny because he later became like a major critic of Scientology.
yeah,
I think it was in the 1990s, like speaking out. He never got involved, but he was like involved with like, you know, criticizing it. I just happen to remember that. Is that right?
yeah, I
And
think so.
what was he?
He was the Johnny Carson before Johnny Carson of the talk
Oh,
shows. He
okay.
wore glasses and he was Steve Allen. It was the Steve
Comedian,
Allen show.
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
yeah. Steve Allen started the Tonight Show. Then it
Mhm.
was taken over by a guy named Jack Parr,
Right.
and then Johnny Carson came in. So
That's right.
Okay.
yeah, so he was a big celebrity, and I, you know, one time I wrote a guy in Florida, Roy Lemoyne, PhD, and I said, hey, I've got a little note here that says that you were in the hospital with Ron Hubbard, that he wrote about when he was ill and rehabilitated himself and all that. And Roy wrote back and said, yeah, I don't think he was that sick. and I said, but I'd send him a little flyer on Hymn of Asia, which Bruce Bishop made happen after he read Ron's poem that was written for the Buddhists in 1954 to try to convince them that he was Maitreya, Buddha come back, right? And so and the book came out, and we had this flyer, and so Roy bought the book. He thought, well, that's real interesting, because he was like a doctor of philosophy or something, you know. And then he writes back, and because I wanted him to tell me how he liked the book, he said, yeah, well, it's very interesting. I don't think he was Maitreya, but it's very well written. And what I'm really curious about is what will happen to Scientology after Hubbard dies, right? And so if you didn't like something that somebody said that was negative about Scientology or stuff, you had the option of dead filing them.
So, that's right.
So their file was put away, never to be seen again. And so so I dead filed Roy, you know, just because he had that question. It was stupid, but you know, I was a hard charging soldier at the time, or sailor. You want to look at it that way.
Hey, let me ask you a couple questions. Where were you living at the time? Were you living in that, you know, in Sea Org Berthing, or where you know, what were you doing? Were you working at this location here at the
Celebrity Center? Absolutely, that one. Yeah. Well, no, that's where the on the left where you see the pale car. That's where Division 6 was, and right inside those windows was a snack bar also. But the letter registrars were in another house a couple blocks away on Beacon Street, and that was in the bottom where we worked, a room in the bottom, and then there was berthing for people upstairs in that house, and then another house across the street, and I lived in the berthing upstairs from where I worked.
Okay.
And when I first got there was a girl who was the head of HCO, Hubbard Communications Office, named Sam, and I don't know her last name, but she had decided that I was her man. As soon as she saw me, and she wanted me to move in with her. So I moved in for one night, and then I went, I don't want to live with her, you know. And so then I was stuck up in the attic of the house where I was living in, and then I ended up. Where did I end up? I ended up rooming with another guy or two or something like that. You know, it was yeah.
But you didn't go and live at the Lake Street building, the old Charlie Chaplin house?
No, the ones who were living there was like Irene, Howie, Irene Derman,
Yep.
and the executives lived at the Lake Street house.
Oh, I remember there being some dorms in there as well.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, I wasn't privileged.
Oh, and meals were taken in the basement, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and staff
That's
muster.
right. That's right. Yeah. And Yvonne was always pulling some kind of stunt or whatever you want to call it. She had Seals and Croft came to have dinner there one night. If you remember them, Summer Breeze and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And James Fiducia, remember him, the auditor, Class 8 auditor?
Yes. He married Joni Prather.
And I remember I think I actually had dinner with them one night or something like that. And your mother, this funny thing they had I think it was in the kitchen or something, they had a dart board, and some of us were playing darts and stuff. And she says, "Oh, let me try." And she gets a dart and she misses wildly. And then she went, "Oh, I get it. It's intention." And she goes, "Thunk," right in the middle bullseye.
Oh, wow.
And she was always pulling something like that. One time there was some crazy guy between the 1809 West 8th main thing you just saw, and then we had an office building where the Axioms productions had been, and that was still being rented, but now it was auditing rooms and stuff like that. And so there was a crazy guy with a knife, and people were surrounding him, trying to talk him down. He might have been on drugs. So your mother walked directly up to him and whispered, "Give me the knife." And he just went, "Yes, ma'am," and gave it to her. So she was always doing things like that just baffle people,
Well, you bring that up. That reminds me of a story where she had to catch a plane to get to an event on time, and she was running late. And she gets to the airport, and they said, "Ma'am, that plane's already taking off. You cannot get aboard." So she went, this was the days you didn't have security or anything. She walked out onto the runway to the guy with the headphones and the speaker onto the plane. She walks out and says, "Call that plane back." And the guy did. He called it back. She gets aboard, and off she goes and makes her event on time.
Oh my God. Oh yeah.
Yeah, Yvonne was like, in meeting with her, most people say, she had that intention, but she was so full of what we called ARC, right? In other words, she was like, she made you feel welcome in her space. She was interested, and she was like, had this presence about her that was warm, right? Am I right, Skip?
Absolutely. She was like, if you saw Cinderella, she was like Bibbidi Bobbidi Boo. She was like the fairy godmother of Scientology, man. Totally cool,
And everybody loved her at Celebrity Center. You know what
Absolutely
I mean?
did. Yeah. And she then the letter regs got moved into the 1833 building, and so I really got to see some interesting things over there. And like one day I look out in the hall, and Rock Hudson is emerging in a rush from a door, and he was being audited by Hector Carmona. Rock's manager was a lady named Flo Allen, who was a Scientologist and best buddies with Marion Wagner, who married Robert Wagner twice, and then she was married to Donan, whatever his name is, I'm forgetting his first name, famous film director. And so those two were around all the time. And so Flo got Rock to come in for a sample auditing session. And I believe Hector was later a roommate of mine after the Sea Org. And I believe what happened was they hit a little question of that hit on Rock's homosexuality, boom,
Right.
that, and boom, he was gone.
Gone.
Never came back.
Well, wasn't it Carmen Terra that was doing the opera by dupe with Rock or something, and Rock hit on him?
Oh, is that what happened? Okay, all right,
yeah. That's what I had heard. Yeah, I think it was Carmen Terra. Right. Yeah, okay. Carmen was in West Side Story.
I thought he got a read on Rock too, but Rock hit on him. I'm not surprised because Carmine was the lead Latino role in West Side Story all over Europe, and he was a good-looking guy, and he was a very overly sexual guy as well. There was a guy named John Thomas who was a famous trumpet player who came in, and John had a very beautiful wife, and Carmine was auditing her. And it went a little further than that after hours, and John Thomas left Scientology, and Carmine got in a bunch of trouble, but he was a Class 8 auditor, so he didn't get in too much trouble.
Right. Yeah.
Scientology, Hubbard didn't believe, in homosexuality. He believed it was an aberration and something that you needed to be handled. And you can imagine, this is the swinging 70s, but Rock Hudson was known as a leading man, and his public image was not that he was homosexual at all. Yeah. And so that would have scared him off because, it would have threatened his career at the time.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And so we, the Celebrity Center was popping over on 8th Street at that time.
Can I ask you how like you said, there were you would see celebrities just around there all the time, like Janis or how did Yvonne or whoever make these contacts to get these people in during that time period?
Yeah, it was networking, and she was all over you can imagine who Flo Allen and Marion Wagner might have known, and Marion's son, Josh Donan, got involved. I was standing in the lobby one day, and Lou Rawls, the singer, walks in.
Right.
And I'm like, Lou Rawls, are you in Scientology? He said, no, I'm trying to get out of it. And I'm like, what? What's going on? And he's I did this one course in Las Vegas now, but this time John Murakami, the leader of my commune and kicked me out, he and his wife Betty were in Vegas running Celebrity Center Vegas, right?
Yep.
And so Lou Rawls did the communications course. They immediately started blasting it out that Lou Rawls was a Scientologist. And Lou,
I remember him being on the cover of Celebrity magazine.
Yeah. And Lou didn't like that. He didn't approve that. So I went and told Yvonne's secretary or whatever, whoever it was, Lou Rawls is here and he's not too happy. So she met with him, and I think she agreed to stop sending him mail or claiming that he was a Scientologist or something like that. I'm standing another time. I'm standing there, and somebody who was a news staff member who didn't know me because I was always off in the letterage office comes up and says, Woody, how do you like your course? And I said, I'm not Woody. Oh, you're Woody Woodmansey, the Spiders from Mars, right? No. I work here. I'm Skip Press. Oh, I didn't know that. So Mike Garson, who was David Bowie's keyboardist forever,
right?
And long-term Scientologist, Mike got all of the Spiders from Mars to come into Celebrity Center and take the communications course. Not David, but all the rest of them.
What's Spiders from Mars? I don't know who that. What is that?
That was, like ground control to Major Tom. Those guys were on the tour with.
So Spiders from Mars was part of the band.
That was his band. The Spiders from Mars was Bowie's backup band.
Okay.
And so they were all taking the communications course with their glam hair and their high heel boots, except for Mick Ronson. The lead guitarist, he got up after a couple of things and said, "Oh, to hell with this," and he walks out. So, but the rest of them finished it, and Woody Woodmansee was like my doppelganger, or I was his, and when we looked a lot alike, mostly haircut, same size or something, and he became a Scientologist of long term, you know.
This is you, right?
Yeah,
this
it's me.
Back in that day.
Yeah, that's kind of what I look like. That's me. About 10 years later, when that's me, 1975, I think.
Okay.
Down by the, I think maybe by the Lake Street house or something like that. Randy McDonald, who was the creator and editor of Celebrity Magazine, heard my story about getting into Scientology, and so he put me in the magazine, how I got into Scientology, and rarely was a staff member put in there like that. But I guess he liked my story. You know, yeah. Karen Black was on the cover of that one. This one is while I was still on staff, probably 76, 75 or 76, and there was a big Scientology event at the Greek Theater. That's Bill Houst, who was a Sea Org member on the left. That's Pat Gualtieri with a tie. Mickey Llewell, who was a Celebrity Center staff member, and me. We're at the Greek Theater, and I forget what the whole thing was about, but there was a Scientology band called Rockin' Horse that played, and it was some kind of Ron's birthday, maybe.
I think so, because I remember I was there, and Rocking Horse, that was Robbie Levin from People. And People had broken up, or he'd changed the name, and Rocking Horse was Robbie. And
Chuck, somebody was the lead singer. Lenny Macaluso was in that group. It was a good group. I think they might have even had a record deal.
Yeah, they did. We interviewed Robbie about this. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. And the funny thing is, there was supposedly no fraternization between Scientology staff members and people who were public, who came in to do courses, except if the person that they got involved with was a celebrity. You know, like John Prather brought John Travolta in.
Yeah.
And I didn't know Joni back in Dallas, but Joni used to be on an afternoon dance show, kind of like American Bandstand in Dallas. And I thought she was the bomb. And then she shows up one day, and she's bringing Travolta in, and Joni ended up marrying James Fiducia, who was this really good-looking Class 8 auditor for Celebrity Center. And so, you know, James has a better place to live. And Wings Hauser, Gerald Hauser, who changed his name to Wings Hauser.
Wings Living Right.
Then he became Wings Living Right. And he connects with Cass Warner. And marries her.
And she buys out his SEAL contract so he wouldn't have a freeloader bill.
That's it. And the next thing you know, they're going to do Celebrity Center Santa Barbara. And I don't know how that turned out. But he, you know, so now Wings is a celebrity, and then he becomes an actor and everything. So there were ways to escape your SEAL contract. You just had to marry.
Just so people know, Wings is the father, and Cass Warner is the mother of Cole Hauser, one of the stars of Yellowstone. And we did a video of him because we had photographs that we found of Cole as a baby at the Fort Harrison Hotel in Clearwater, you know, with Darius Wilhare on this big wheels riding around in their diapers and stuff, you know. Wings
passed not too long ago, but he was quite the character. You know, he confessed to me one time that he got into Celebrity Center because it had a piano. So
during one of my leaves, you know, when I'd be there only for a week or so, I remember hearing the piano, and I went downstairs, and Wings was playing the piano. And Wings was a good-looking guy. I was like 17. I'd flirt with him, as he's playing away. Yeah.
Yeah, he was talented. But the whole thing about Celebrity Center on 8th Street was it was a lot of fun. It really was a lot of fun. When we would assemble for muster, early in the morning, there were weird people that would come by. Like there was the pink lady who had all these pink knit clothes and a hat and everything and a shopping cart full of stuff. And she'd come rolling by, and we'd try not to laugh. And then there was a guy called the Mirror Man.
Right.
The Mirror Man would walk down the sidewalk. This guy, Janis? He walked down the sidewalk.
I saw him.
Yeah, holding a mirror and going, and it was like Czechoslovakian or something. He was screaming at himself. Yeah. And then one day we're out in muster, and the Mirror Man rolls up to a stop and stop sign, and he's got a little motorcycle now. And we thought, oh my God, the Mirror Man is cured. He's okay and everything, No, he goes over to his little mirror, goes, then rolls off, So
right. Then there was the rag lady too, who collected rags in her shopping cart.
Yeah. And
this is when it was over by near MacArthur Park area, right?
Downtown. It's kind of between downtown and MacArthur Park. So it was kind of a wild neighborhood, but you never knew who would show up. One time, there's Milton Gonzalez, there's Heber on the left, and there's Milton Gonzalez, famous director and acting teacher more than anything. Pat Gualtieri, there's Yvonne, Robert F. Lyons, who was a pretty successful actor at that time.
Bobby is still a Scientologist in good standing.
Is he really? Oh man.
Yeah.
He's probably still teaching in the same place. Yeah.
And then basically, I mean, like you said, like Joni Prather brought John Travolta in because she did a movie with him and she disseminated to him about come into Scientology. And we're talking in the 1970s for our viewers who were never in. There was no negative public relations towards Scientology or anything about Xenu or anything about, none of that was out there. And so it's basically more like, hey, I can help you with this or I can help you with that. But then like another major way that they got celebrities was Milton Gonzalez right there, the guy with the beard in the center. He had an acting school, like you mentioned, Skip, and he would refer his acting students to come to Celebrity Center, right?
Yeah. And then John took off. John Travolta got Welcome Back Kotter, and he did the HAS course, and he did the HQS course, and then we'd have graduation. Every I think Friday night or something, and John and Gilda Midoff, who was his supervisor on HQS, drive up onto the little parking lot thing in John's new T-Bird. His baby blue T-Bird that he bought after he got Welcome Back Kotter. And before Welcome Back Kotter even aired, John was in a room in the 1833 building playing the pilot for people to see what they thought, So there was some exciting stuff. All kinds of people came in. We would often be cutting it real close financially. I remember one time, Thursday at 2:00 was coming when we had to shut down the statistics, and it didn't look like we were going to have any money for the next week. And a guy named Bill Keeler came in, and he was a Cherokee Indian. His Indian name was Chula Westanihi, which means man who never sits down. He'd been the CEO of Phillips 66 Oil and also Cherokee Oil, right? So Hector Carmona does a registrar thing on him, and Bill plunks out a check for $25,000 and saves Celebrity Center.
Wasn't that the guy? He was the guy they called Chief Billy?
Yes.
Yeah,
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah, I remember my mother talking about him.
Yeah, and Bill tried to get a whole bunch of people in the Cherokee Nation into Scientology, and they were like, "No, I don't think so." So, but he was in for a while, and 25,000 bought a lot in those days. I don't know if it's what he ever
yeah, that
did.
was a lot of money then.
Yeah. And then we'd have goofy things happen, like Larry Wallersheim. He was a hard charging registrar. Get them in any way you can. And I think he was probably the Sea Org recruiter when this happened. He goes to Phoenix on a tour and comes. It's so crazy. Comes back with a literal bus load full of Navajos. And he's promised them all they will have a job at the Celebrity Center.
I had not heard that.
Oh, yeah. We were like, are you out of your mind? Where we're going to put them? And so these guys, I think they lasted about a day, and then we sent them all back on the bus.
Oh,
we interviewed Larry a year or so ago.
Yeah.
He didn't tell you about that one.
No.
No, we talked about his Sea Org recruiting and this and that, but no, we didn't hear that story. That's funny.
Yeah.
What's funny now is today, or not like in Scientology today, a lot of the workers that they get, like at the Fort Harrison Hotel and all that, they come from third world countries like Taiwan and stuff and all that, where like they promise them like, oh, come join the Sea Org and you'll work in Florida and we'll get you, into a visa into the United States and this and that. And that's how they manned up a lot of their operations and stuff with these workers,
Yeah, absolutely. And Larry, one more story about Larry. There were people who had debts, like I owed a little bit of a college debt. Al Rabisi had debts. Pat Gualtieri had debts. And it was like, how are you going to pay them when you're getting $17 a week if you're lucky, And so there was a Scientologist named Brian Tully.
Oh, I worked for that. Go ahead.
You did it? Yeah. So you want to? So Larry gets a job selling meat door to door.
It's a door-to-door meat company. You sell meat door-to-door, meaning raw steak, but it was frozen, but steak and hamburger. That was my first job when I came out to 77 to do an internship. And, you got to go work at Tully Steaks,
Yeah, and Larry did tell us about that.
He told you about that? Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, though.
And they would, just a little more. They would go to places where you got food stamps or whatever you call them, and hit them on the day. So there is these mostly black people getting these food stamps, and they'd be right there with those steaks. You can't get a better price, give us.
They were located in Gardena, California, and we sold in Compton, California, and this is before the Crips and the Bloods. Okay, right. So like literally, I remember the van would pull up, we'd knock on these doors in the daytime, and we'd show these people their steaks and their hamburger, and we got they would buy the boxes of the meat, and that's how we made money. I did that for like 2 months, and I went, I've had enough of this. Right. It's so funny now thinking about that.
It was nuts, man. It was nuts, and meanwhile. Celebrity Center was kind of magic at the time, right? They had a thing every week called Poetry by Candlelight, which Janis probably went to some of those, and fantastic things would happen. Larry Evoy and his group Edward Bear, who had one hit song called The Last Song, they showed up and they were touring, and they had another group with them called the New Potatoes or something like this. This is both these are Canadian people, right? So it's overcast over Celebrity Center, and I think Larry had a song called "All the Stars Are Shining," and he said, "Hey, let's get rid of these clouds. What do you think? Let's put our intentions out there and let's get rid of this overhanging clouds we have." And then he played All the Stars Are Shining. Go outside, clouds are gone. So there was stuff like that. Jimmy Spheris would come and play just unbelievably good. Jeff Levin's playing with him. David Campbell's playing with him. He sings his "I Am the Mercury" that he dedicated to Hubbard, which was still is a magical song. Just really.
Was Jimmy Spheris in the Incredible String Band?
No, that was Robbie Williamson.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Mike Herron.
Mike Herron. Yeah. Like the bird.
Yeah.
And and you would also have there was a guy named Bobby Shue, married to a lady named Lisa Shue, a fantastic, well-known jazz trumpeter who would play Black Orpheus. And it was just, it was always magical when this stuff was going on. Rosie Greer, the LA Rams legend and actor, he showed up one time. These people like this were coming in.
What did you ever hear the one of Heber where Heber was performing about a dog called Blue?
Oh, Blue, God Almighty! I heard that song so many times, and it was good. It was good. And I don't know if you probably heard this one, Janis, but Heber was still acting, and he got to go off and be in the movie 1776, right? And so. Heber was convinced he had been Benjamin Franklin in another life. And I asked him when I said, "Did you get to play Ben Franklin?" "No, I played like Charles Colson from South Carolina or something like that." So this kind of past lives thing was always floating around there,
Yeah.
Right.
When I got to Celebrity Center the first time, there were two other people who were convinced they'd been Mark Twain, and one of them left after a week, and then the other one was not a Celebrity Center guy. It was Tori Bazazian's husband, Harold Bazazian. He was convinced he was Mark Twain. I just shut up. I didn't care who was or who wasn't. I was just trying to figure things out, right? But in my second iteration, starting 1974, there's a guy named Christopher Keogh, I think was his name, who said he was the brother of Stephen Boyd, the famous actor who
from Ben-Hur.
Ben-Hur, and Stephen was a Scientologist, right? Yeah. So Chris wants to put on a play that and he wants to cast me and Bibby Hansen in it. That's the first time I ever met Bibby, Beck's mother, and so we do a little rehearsal of one of the scenes, and it's the Diary of Mark Twain, and it was a play version was written by a guy named I don't know, but there's a play version of it, and he was a Scientologist, this guy, right? So we didn't put on the play, but that. Things like that was always floating around. There was a girl who came up to me at the snack bar thing one time, and she had a great auditing session, and she remembered when she was married to me when I was Buffalo Bill Cody. I don't think so.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, it's funny. When you bring up all the past lives, it's like there's so many people that say they were Queen Elizabeth I, or it's like no one was ever a beggar on the street.
Right. Never. The only person that I know who's ever copped to that is my friend Kathy Schinkelberg, who did Squeeze My Cans. And Kathy swears she was always like a saloon girl or something,
Yeah. Well, we've enjoyed your story, Skip. We're going to have you back because there's a lot more to talk about your time at Celebrity Center and the Scientology. And then just so our viewers know, eventually Skip, we'll get to it. Skip left Scientology, I guess, in 1996, and then later became, you spoke out about it and wrote about it and that type of thing. And why don't you tell everybody too? You've got a podcast and you do some writing, and how can people find you? Either on the internet or in the podcast world.
Yeah, skippress.com. I have a Substack that basically tells my story called Chasing Mark Twain, but I'm telling you guys stuff that's not even in that. And then I do a podcast every Monday morning. I'm kind of a co-host on a thing called theawakenation.com. That's where you can find it. It's news and commentary. And then I recently finished a long series about American presidents under the aegis of Agent X11. It's on Rumble. And I'm going to start a new one on the 19th called Seeking Grace. And it's about the spiritual evolution of America and all the churches and religions and everything, starting with the Mayflower Compact coming up to present time. So
cool.
That's all great.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, it's also time to mention Janis's Complete Liquid Multivitamins. They're our sponsor on the show from Outback Natural. Yeah, you get all your vitamins in like 2 tablespoons or a little shot glass, and it's the easiest way to take them. You get rid of the pills and get the power, right, Janis?
That's right. That's right. Yep. Get rid of the pills and drink the power.
Drink the power, yeah, and it's got, it's very easy. I take them daily. It's if you're tired of swallowing pills, it's peach flavored. You keep it refrigerated once you've opened it. It's very easy to take, but all you have to do is just go down, click on our merchandise store. You can order it there. You also can go to vites.com, right, Janis? VITES.com. Right?
That's correct.
Order it there.
Yep.
Yeah, and Janis will ship it out to you here in the United States. And anyway, so we just want to mention that as well. Also, if you would please subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Rock slam that like button. Hit that notification button. Janis likes to rock slam it. And it lets let you know when it's time to watch another video with us. Also, it lets people know by subscribing, gets the word out. So we really appreciate that. Also, if you have any questions or comments about what we talked about here, anything for Skip, go down in the comment section. We appreciate any feedback from that as well. And then finally, if you want to help support the channel, you can buy us a coffee. There's a link in the video description below. Just click on it, follow the instructions, and any money we get from that goes back into the channel so we can keep things running here. Janis and Skip, anything else you guys would like to say before we end off the show?
Let me say one thing for anybody who can go on the internet now and research all kinds of things about Scientology. Back in the day, you couldn't do that. It wasn't really in a newspaper much. It wasn't on TV or anything. And a whole lot of stuff about Celebrity Center was tremendous fun, up until about 1977. And then it got a little more serious, and in 1978 you had the FBI raids. So, but there was a lot of fun and really well-meaning people, and young, and enthusiastic, and optimistic toward the future. Right, Janis? I mean, we all were.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I only went there once a year during my 3-week leave of absence. And so I was not there all the time, but the short period I was there, it was always fun. Lots always happening and great people.
Yeah, that's why a lot of people in Hollywood particularly got into Scientology.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, everybody. Well, until next time, we're going to have you back soon, Skip, to tell more stories. But until next time, everybody, bye-bye. We'll see you later.
Bye.